All right, this is a tutorial on the building blocks kit. Now this quilt kit is on my website. I'm gonna show you how easy it is. Y'all currently have me cutting and sewing all of the quilts. And I get to make quilts occasionally, but most of the time I am helping my students make them. So this has been super rewarding. So you're gonna start with, let's see what our instructions say. You're gonna start with a 10-inch square and you're gonna cut a 2.5-inch strip from one side, and then you'll cut a 2.5-inch strip from the other side. So do you see how we had the center and we had this 2.5 and this 2.5? So what we're gonna do is sew these together. Now I'm gonna put the short one on there first, just like this, pretty side to pretty side. I'm gonna sew it right here, straight stitch, 1/4-inch seam, back stitching when I start and when I stop.
Because my grandma said so.
Now, do you see what I have? Now I'm gonna sew the long side on, just like this. Straight stitch, 1/4-inch seam, back stitching when I start and when I stop. Now I have a 1/2-inch tail, and I know where that came from. It's the seam allowance from sewing the top.
But I'm like you. I have to go back and look at the pattern to make sure I didn't miss something.
Okay, so it doesn't say it, but you should have this. You should have this at the bottom because your piece was 10 inches long, and so was your square before you sewed these two pieces together. But when you sewed these together, you lost that seam allowance, so that makes this shorter. So now this is what you have. You're gonna do this 42 times until you have 42 blocks. After you have 42 blocks, now we're gonna iron them. Now I already have the rest of mine done because y'all did not want to sit here for 7 years and watch me sew all this. Okay, it really didn't take 7 years. It's very beginner friendly, I promise, super easy. This is my ironing situation. Aliso Iron, wool pressing mat, heat resistant pad, all available in my Walmart storefront if you're looking for them. Now, I'm gonna iron this. I'm not ironing my seams open or even to one side. I just wanna make sure it's reasonably flat. But listen, if you wanna iron yours open, that's how I want you to iron them. If you wanna iron them to one side, that's how I want you to iron them. If you don't wanna iron at all, I ain't judging you. Do whatever makes you comfortable. Sewing is supposed to be fun, not stressful. So now I've got it ironed. See my little tail? I'm gonna cut that off. That's a massive pair of scissors. It's not a keeper. They're too big for me. They're just handy. So now we have 42 blocks, so let's pretend like we do. We're gonna lay them out. We're gonna lay them out in rows of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows of 6. And we're gonna take our blocks and we're gonna lay them just like this. Now I'm gonna pick this block up and place it pretty side to pretty side. So I have one 2.5-inch strip, 7.5-inch block laying on top of one 2.5-inch by 10, but it's really 2.5-inch by 9 inches or 9.5 inches. We're gonna lay those together just like this, and we're gonna sew right here. Straight stitch, 1/4-inch seam, back stitching when we start and when we stop.
Because this quilt is all straight stitches, it's super beginner friendly.
Okay. You see how pretty that is? Now, you're gonna keep sewing that until you have 6. All right, you keep sewing yours, I'm gonna keep sewing mine, and when I have 6, I'm gonna show you that. Okay, so now this is what we have. That. Now we have to add it to the rest of our quilt. So, do you see how this top right here makes the bottom border of this, and the top of this block makes the bottom border of this? So you have a border, one border around each block, although when you just sewed yours, you only put a border on 2 sides. So now we're gonna sew these two together. Pretty side to pretty side, straight stitch, back stitching when you start and when you stop, because my grandma said so.
And y'all know, my grandma terrified me. She told me that if I did not backstitch, my stuff would fall apart. There are tons of these building blocks quilt kits on my website, hometownquiltcompany.com, along with a whole bunch of other designs.
Okay, so now we've sewn our blocks together, we've sewn our blocks in rows, and we've sewn our rows together. Now, what do our instructions say? Okay, for the inner border is 2.5-inch strips and the outer border is 6-inch strips. So let's see. Okay, this is gonna be my inner border and this is gonna be my outer border. So I'm gonna start by cutting the selvage off of every one of my strips. I've cut my selvage off. Now I'm gonna take 2 strips and I'm going to sew them end to end, just like this. Pretty side to pretty side, so I have one really long strip. I did that 2 times because now I'm going to sew this to the top and the bottom of my quilt. straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when you start and when you stop, because my grandma said so.
Sewing the borders on is super easy, and it's very satisfying because you know you're almost at the end.
Okay, I sewed it to the top. Now I'm going to sew it to the bottom. And listen, I just made up the top and the bottom. It doesn't matter which side, just as long as you're doing opposite sides. So I did one end. Now I'm going to do the other end, or what I'm calling the end.
All of the quilt kits on hometownquiltcompany.com are very beginner friendly, I promise. I was super careful to only pick designs that I want to make. Even as an experienced sewer, I still like something that's easy.
Now after I've sewn it on, I'm just literally, let me get a better pair of scissors. I'm just literally folding it over and cutting it off right here. Just like that. Now, I need to do the other two sides. But I'm going to take these two pieces that I cut off and I'm going to sew them to the two pieces that I have. So I'm going to sew this one pretty side to pretty side. And I'm going to sew it straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam, back stitching when I start and when I stop. And I'm going to sew it together so that I have one really long piece, and then I can do my two side borders. So now I've done all of my inner borders. Now it's time to do my exterior borders, the outer borders. And that is 6 inches by 6 inches. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut off the selvage. We're going to sew it together end to end, 2 pieces, 2 pieces, 2 pieces, and 2 pieces, so that we have 2 pieces sewn together for each side.
I'm so glad y'all are loving these quilt kits because I'm having the most fun making them and writing these patterns, which I would not have said was my favorite, but for whatever reason, I'm super enjoying it.
My phone died and I didn't know it. So I've sewn the border on. Do you see this? I just laid it over and sewed it pretty side to pretty side. I started at the corner like this. Sewed it with a 1/4 inch seam all the way down. Now we're going to open it up and we're going to lay our next border on and sew it. Maybe if we'll move the thread out of the way. Pretty side to pretty side, just like this, starting at the top. Can you see that? Starting at the top of this border and going all the way down. We're going to sew our borders to both sides, and then we're going to be done with our quilt. This is a super easy quilt, straight stitches, beginner friendly, lots of fabric options on the website, but don't forget to email me a photo to hometownquiltcompany@gmail.com. I want to see the quilts that you make. My name is Tammy. I'm your favorite sewing teacher, and I would love for you to come sew with me.